Question 1. In what ways does your media product develop, use, or challenge forms and conventions? The main goal behind my short film was to poke fun at the main conventions of horror films and how they become standardized over the years since their inception. Applying the Christian Metz theory of genre characteristics, you can state that the mainstream horror scene is in the classical parody stage of development, and my work comes under the category of a deconstruction piece. So it is deliberately designed to be a hybrid of genres, and subvert the conventions of said genre by making the film as conventional as possible, and using the fourth wall, and then using a break of the fourth wall to point out the silliness of the horror tropes. The film then makes use of several generic horror conventions that I established in one of my initial blog posts. The film itself is a homage to Cabin in the Woods, and a postmodern acknowledgement of the inherent silliness of the genre. In line with more or less all slasher films, the characters have over-exaggerated personalities, with emphasis on certain aspects of said personality. Downey, for example, is the cynic character, who is repeatedly derisive of the existence of the killer, and as well as of the other characters. Also called the skeptic, this character is designed to die after repeatedly taunting the killer, though it is subverted in the short because the killer forgets his lines, breaking the fourth wall, and revealing the nature of a film within a film. The sympathetic character of Ewan is the first character to die, and fulfills a damsel in distress role, similar with that of the princess role outlined in Vladimir Prop's Spheres of Action theory. This character is usually female and shown to be physically weaker than the antagonist. These characters generally have to be saved by a male antagonist from threat, or in the case of conventional horror films, fit into the final girl archetype. For example, the character of Casey Becker from the opening of Scream, who is quickly murdered. This convention is subverted in two ways. Primarily the fact that it is left unstated who is more physically powerful, that is implied to be the killer, as Ewan is killed, and the fact that the damsel in distress role is filled by a male instead of a female. Carol J. Clover's theory on gender in horror films applies to the convention that the final girl is the first character to sense something amiss, and the only one to deduce from the accumulating evidence the pattern and extent of threat. The only one, in other words, whose perspective approaches our own privileged understanding of the situation. The character that the audience can identify with for exhibiting what we would define as common sense in the middle of a horror film. This convention is also subverted by the fact that the only character who displays said rational thought is male, in the case of Harry, also because the film examines this theory in the opening during the fourth wall break at the close of the short, by talking about immorality and a final girl being produced as a convention. The breaking of the fourth wall at the end of the short that reveals the film reveals to the audience that the audience has been. The breaking of the fourth wall at the end of the short that reveals the film is a film the audience has been watching and is a film within a film breaks horror convention entirely. The fourth wall breaking is a deconstruction practice that is employed mainly in postmodern comedies such as Deadpool and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So featuring it in horror, admittedly a horror comedy, is a large swerve away from standard conventions of the genre, mainly reserved for parody. This was included in my deconstruction piece as a byproduct of the generation I was trying to appeal to, particularly the Generation Z demographic, the inherent cynicism behind it all, wanting to reveal the man behind the curtain. It satirizes the horror genre even more, and shows that it is an overproduced, cliche-ridden genre, and smashes the formula on the floor. As to the conventions of my poster, it was designed to conform to horror poster styling, but from the 1970s and 80s rather than anything more contemporary. The design was supposed to evoke posters of classic slasher films, specifically Halloween. Thus it does not fit any modern-day horror poster conventions per se, serving as a callback to retro posters, so it's designed to fit those conventions. The titles of the film were also designed in this vein, serving also as a callback to horror title slides. How effective is the combination of your media main product and ancillary texts? Question 2. The synergy between the short, its poster, and the film review is undoubtable. In theory, a film poster puts the idea of the film in prospective audience members' mind. They read a review, and as a result go see the film. The ancillaries all participate in a mutually beneficial relationship. Not only do they compel the audience toward the short, they work intermittently together. The importance of advertising for any media production, particularly films, is inherent to the success of said production. So taking it seriously and designing ancillaries that complement both each other and the main project simultaneously was key. Synergy is the need for a film. Key to this synergy is the need a film has for creative and cohesive marketing. So I've taken a careful and considered approach to styling. In the case of the review, I took inspiration from professional film magazines such as Empire and Total Film. I conducted research into the generic conventions of these magazines, looking at composition, colour, styling, and use of images and shapes. The overall layout was designed around a minimalist goal with a clean look. I used the same colour scheme as the poster, black, white and red, to establish a sense of brand cohesiveness that intends to make the audience members subconsciously associate the poster and review together. The poster, as previously discussed, essentially functions as a huge reference to retro horror films. The font used, and for the film's main titles, is actually the same font used in Friday the 13th movies, serving as an indirect reference to one of the films that helped consolidate the slasher subgenre of horror. The poster's overall design takes influence from 1979's Halloween poster, designed as a cohesive minimalist style with a review, also featuring the same colours. In short, by featuring crossover elements, be it something small as font or colour, I was able to associate the two ancillaries together in order to collectively compel the potential audience towards viewing the production. Question 3. What have you learned from your audience feedback? During the research process for the short, I conducted a survey to establish a potential target audience for my short, and subsequently understand the demographic I was appealing to. Overwhelmingly, the age of the audience that responded to the survey, distributed via Facebook, was 72% 15 to 20. Also the typical consumers of horror films, typically speaking. The indication given then is the age I would have to appeal to was the post-millennial I generation, or Generation Z. Knowing this, uploading the short to YouTube seemed one of the most direct courses of action to appeal to the group in question. See question 4. The comments section of YouTube has been indicative of the response to the film so far, much of which is positive and shows that the short has indeed reached at least some of its target audience. So overall what have I learned from my audience feedback? The horror audience is definitely that of the late teens, early 20s demographic, or millennial Generation Z, horror hipster generation. Those who are comfortable using Web 2.0 connectivity and social media. Thus appealing to them using tools such as Facebook and YouTube will produce favourable results, as will appealing to them with a short that is appropriately deconstructionist and cynical in nature. Question 4. How did you use new media technologies in the construction, research, planning and evaluation stages? New technologies used for planning. The Blogger service was paramount to my whole coursework. From research to my final project, the service's drop-in, drop-out functionality allowed me to make amendments and easily update my research, as and when I found information. I was able to set my research out in a coherent and orderly fashion. Blogger served as a simple yet effective planning tool. Being able to set out the order of planning analysis, and I was able to check off parts of the plan that I completed and was able to clearly see what I had left to complete. YouTube. The YouTube service was multi-purpose and used throughout the whole project, allowing me to access examples of shot types to input into my research, as examples to back up my definitions. YouTube was also great for the distribution of my film, as I uploaded it in order to reach my intended target audience. As a widely available shareable platform, YouTube is perfect for distribution to a teenage audience, as this demographic is the most internet literate, and through this platform I will be able to reach them easily and effectively. The readiness of Web 2.0 allows increased connectivity across the world, and uploading the short to YouTube is thus the key to distributing it widely. Adobe Premiere Elements. Whilst not the most sophisticated editing software or the newest, Premiere Elements was the software that I had access to in order to edit my film. The layout of the software was simple enough for me to get to grips with, and after a few hours I was able to insert simple titles and edits and cut down the raw footage that I had into a serviceable short. Whilst a more sophisticated editing package would have been preferable, Premiere Elements was just as serviceable, allowing me to create the short that I desired and that was satisfying end product. The software was very useful to allow me to input additional audio for various sequences in the short, such as the introductory piano music over the opening titles, which allowed me to create a somber mood to open on, and then a more jubilant, almost chaotic feel with the guitar-centric rock music that plays over the scenes that feature the main characters at the pub. The ability to input these musical sequences allowed me to convey mood and context without having to shoehorn in unnatural dialogue. Thusly, Premiere Elements was very, very easy to use once I got the hang of it, and allowed me much freedom in order to enact what I needed to do. Adobe Photoshop. This program was used primarily to create my poster. Unlike Premiere Elements, I am much more experienced with Photoshop, having used it several times before to create visual assets. Overall, it was this prior experience that made the program much less intimidating to use than someone using it for the first time.